in Alberta. We found out about some new restrictions today, so hopefully everything is going on okay and everything is well where you are right now. As we welcome you to another edition of Flames Nation Live. My name is Pat Steinberg on this Thursday evening. Congratulations to Rob. Rob was first in on the comments today, followed by Kyle. So those are the first two in, but get your thoughts in. If you got topic ideas, if you've got questions, we always have time for that, and we always like to get your input on what you want to talk about. But as you start to think about that, I think that this is the only place that we can start. Look at these beauties. Look at what we get. It's finally happening, friends. Now, I know that it's not official, but the Flames put out these pictures on their social media earlier today, and I think it's probably safe to say, knowing that they're throwing back to 1998, knowing that we see a black jersey, knowing that we're seeing a white C on the shoulders, I think that we're finally talking about the return of Blasty, the return of the fire-breathing horse head on the front of the Flames jersey. I'll leave these up here for a little bit longer because they're so gorgeous. But yeah, I am stoked to see what these jerseys look like when it's all said and done. I believe Monday is when we get the the updated look. I know that Kyle says it's a hoodie. It's not a hoodie. It's a jersey. This is the retro jersey. The NHL's calling them reverse retro jerseys, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the final design looks like. I believe on Monday is when we will officially get to see Blasty, officially get to see what the third jersey ends up looking like for the Calgary Flames. But I think it's going to be beautiful, just those looks right there. It's a very polarizing subject. Mike says he's getting some for the family. Jordan with the pun, Blasty from the past. But let's be honest. This is a polarizing subject, and it's a polarizing jersey. It's one of those logos and one of those nostalgic pieces that goes back to a not it's the years we don't speak of in Flames Nation. It's the years that we don't like to talk about. You know, that 7-year itch where they didn't make the playoffs, where Jarome Iginla was wallowing on a team that finished perpetually in 10th or 11th place, and you know, it just was not a great era for Flames fans when the black horsehead jerseys came out. But I'm all for them. I'm curious. Like we have some polls on Twitter, and I've seen some different responses on social media. People either love it or people hate it. Like, people love them and can't wait and will buy it. Scott says he's buying it, and I think there will be tons of people who buy it. But I also think that there's a bunch of people who don't like it because of what it represents, or the era that that it represents. Jordan says it's ugly, but I'll use it at beer league. I think they're beautiful. Chris says 25% love Blasty, 25% hate it, and 50% are still meh. Josh, not a fan, never could stand it. Everything that I've seen, the people who love it are thrilled, and from what I've seen, all the polls online, it looks like it's, 75, 80% in favor of them bringing it back. But then again, I don't know how reliable that is, because who knows who's voting on these things, right? Like, you have no idea whether or not it's only people who like the jersey that are voting en masse for it. So, look, I'm all for it. I think they're gorgeous. I think it's a cool throwback, and maybe it can be something that it turns the jerseys back into something that, or turns them away from something that was a bad era of Flames hockey, and maybe we can recreate them and it can stand for a good era of Flames hockey. That's what I would like to see when it comes to these jerseys. What else we got on the comments? And there's a number of things that we got to get to. Jared says, I love it. I've got a Blasty tattoo. I'll buy it for sure. Kyle's got a Captain Iginla jersey of the red one. But Jared's got the actual Blasty tattoo. That's pretty badass. Cam likes it, and Cam gets us into our next topic. So once again, just because I love these jerseys and the way they're looking so much, I always want to put it up on the screen a couple more minutes. Look at that! I think it's gonna look awesome. I think it'll be better than the last third jersey they had, and knowing that they're going full retro, I think it'll be a nice kind of more modern look. If they're going to go retro homes and retro roads, then to have a black jersey like this as the third jersey 15 times a year or 10 times a year or something like that, I'm all for it. So I can't wait for it. Let me read Cam's question here. Cam, do you think the season will start on January 1st? Also, what do you make of the Hanafin Carlo trade rumors? I'll leave the Hanafin Carlo stuff for just a second, but I want to start. I'm going to write that down here. Hanafin Carlo as a topic we can get to a little bit later. But as for the season starting January 1st, let's go big picture for a couple of minutes on the program. By the way, Flamesnation Live, Pat Steinberg along with you. Thanks for being along with us on this Thursday. But on the season starting January 1st, I would say I'm leaning more towards the answer to that question being yes. I believe in, and Pierre LeBrun, Bob McKenzie, Elliot Friedman have all been doing great reporting here over the last little bit about what what some of the issues are and where the league and the Players Association are in getting next season underway. But my belief is yes, January 1st is when the season is going to start, or right in and around there, give or take a day or two. The reason I believe that is because the NBA has determined they're starting December 22nd. I don't believe the NHL wants to have the NBA in that exclusive of a window for almost a month. December 22nd to January 15th, that's almost a month. And that seems to be what a lot of people who don't believe January 1st is going to happen, they believe January 15th. And maybe it does end up being January 15th, but I think that the NBA having almost a full month of exclusive action is something the NHL would not like to see. And I'm not saying the NHL views themselves or views the NBA as competition, but that's a lot of market saturation for the NBA to get, and then all of a sudden for the NHL to enter. And I don't, especially south of the border, I don't know if that's what the league would like to see. So my belief is they are going to do everything in their power to start on January 1st. What that looks like, I don't know. Bubbles, hubs, traveling. LeBron today had, 2 or 3 game series. So to cut down on travel and to make it more efficient, that's kind of what I feel. I think an all Canadian division is going to happen. What do we think about the all Canadian division? I'm all for it. I think it'll be awesome for 1 year. Remember, this is going to be a bridge season. Like all models that I read, everything that is out there seems to suggest that by fall 2021, so in just under a year from now, third quarter, maybe even second quarter of 2021, that we'll kind of be close to back to normal. And certainly we'll be starting to move out of this COVID world that we've been living in. And so if that's the case, then back to pretty darn normal NHL season for 21-22 seems realistic to me. So if that's the case, you need a bridge. You need a bridge to get us there, and you need some sort of one season shortened that still awards a Stanley Cup, that still brings the league revenue, that still has the players playing and getting paid. So that's why I think an all-Canadian division is almost inevitable. It's 1 year only. It's going to be weird. It's going to be different. I think it's going to be awesome. I don't think there is a whole lot to really choose between most of the Canadian teams. I mean, you take Ottawa out of it, and I think Ottawa is going to be better next year than they were last year. But I know Vancouver has not had a great offseason. I think Vancouver will maybe be a little worse than they were last year. I think there's a chance for a slight step back, not a huge one, but a slight step back. But between Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg, Toronto, Montreal, 6 of the 7 teams, I see like virtually nothing separating them. The parity with the 6 of the 7 teams in this all-Canadian division could be bonkers. So I'm all for it. And I really am. I'd be disappointed if it didn't happen now because of how exciting it could be. It's a 1 year only thing. It's to bridge us to get to next season. And if that's the way they have to do it, I'm all for it 10 times out of 10, all day, every day of the week. I hope it happens. Jordan says the All-Canadian division would be must-see TV. I hate the Oilers, and playing them 8 times would be a roller coaster. I don't know if it would. It might be more than 8 times, Jordan. Like, we might be talking about 10 games between the Flames and the Edmonton Oilers. We might be talking about 12, because I don't know if you were to do it right now, let's just say, for the sake of argument, 60-game season starts January 1st. Well, 60 games with 7 teams in a division means 6 opponents. If you're playing all in division, that means 10 games against each team. But do they want the East and the West playing each other 10 times? Is Calgary going to play Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa 10 times? Maybe not. So maybe you're seeing more of the Oilers and the Canucks and the Western Canadian teams. Maybe you're like up to 12 or 13 games between those teams, and you're down to like 7 or 8 against the Eastern Conference teams. It's actually mind-blowing when you think about it. But I think it would be so cool as a bridge, and I think the Flames would be very competitive. Corey asks, do you think they'll allow fans in the buildings? We'll see. We'll see. I just it's so hard to tell at this point, because as we talked about off the hop, new restrictions in Alberta that just started today. They're cutting down on congregating indoors, and I get it that arenas are larger spaces. Maybe not fans to begin with. Maybe not January 1st. Maybe we're talking about March for fans. Maybe we're talking about things really starting to move back towards normal in March, and so maybe not January 1st. I'd be a little surprised if it was January 1st. I don't know. I have no idea. This is just me guessing, but I'd say unlikely would be my read, and then more and more likely as the months pass. But I do think at some point next season, fans will be back, and I do think there will be fans wherever the Stanley Cup is hoisted in June or July of 2021. And I think that we'll probably I don't think it's unrealistic to hope that by the start of the 21-22 season, which would be theoretically in October, back to what we're used to, don't think it's out of the question that we could be pretty much back to normal, pretty close to full capacity around the world by then. I mean, go take a look at what they're having music festivals and full buildings in New Zealand right now. They're trending towards that in Australia, and I know that our situations are very different, but in 10, 11 months' time from now, yeah, I don't think it's crazy to think that we could have getting back to full buildings. Josh asks, what happens with the playoffs in an all-Canadian division? How do the other divisions play out? Well, that remains to be seen, and that's the interesting part, because I don't think we know at this point. Like, I think that it'll start as an all-Canadian division. I don't even know if we get an entire schedule released all at once. Like, it might be, they might release January, February into March, have the first 25 games mapped out, and then regroup from there. They'll have other contingency plans. They'll have made an entire 60-game schedule. They'll have made probably 4 or 5 different schedules, but they'll have the first 25 games released, and then they'll reevaluate, see where things are, and then release the rest of the schedule based on what they know on the other matrices they have made up. So how the playoffs will work, I think that remains to be seen, because I don't even know if they're going to remain playing in a division like that. It might change halfway through. It's the whole thing is so fun to, we don't want to be living in this stupid pandemic. Nobody likes that. But I think it's really cool to think of the possibilities, and this is going to be one of the most crazy nuanced NHL seasons that we've ever been a part of. Elias asks, will there be a qualifying round because of a shortened season? Maybe that, and it sounds, Elliot Friedman had the reporting earlier this week that there might be room for that if they might have that built into the schedule, and if they're able to extend the regular season, then maybe they do that instead of a qualifying round. I do think that we're going to be learning about this in steps. I think the first thing we'll learn is the first 10, 15, 20 games of the season all played regionally, and then I think we'll go from there. And then after that, there'll be different checkpoints, and I think what the playoffs look like might end up being one of those checkpoints. It's not like Major League Baseball had everything finalized when they started. I think it might be like that. Again, just for this year, this coming year, because it is a bridge season. But I do think that it'll kind of be one of those stepped things where we get news in spurts. Steven a little earlier asks on the comments as we continue on Flames Nation Live tonight. Thanks for being with us. My name is Pat Steinberg. Hopefully you're doing well. We'll get back to, I've been on vacation. I haven't been on the radio at Sportsnet 960, so only been doing these once a week. We'll get back to 2 a week next week. We'll bring Pike back on next week and have some more fun conversations with Pike at Flames Nation as well. But Steven writes, what is Kylington's deal? Why hasn't he signed yet? It's a really good question, and I only have theories on that. I don't know for sure why he hasn't signed yet. I think that there's, first of all, I mean, as Brad Treliving would say, well, the reason we haven't agreed on money and term. Okay. But outside of those things, I wonder if this isn't a little bit of a standoff is the wrong word, but if there's still discussion being made, or if there are different wants or different desires when it comes to opportunity. And when I say that, I wonder if it means one-way, two-way contract. I wonder if the Kylington camp is pushing for a one-way deal because that would at least give some assurance that he's not going to be, Kylington's not going to be the first guy that gets optioned to the American League if they run into cap issues or if they need flexibility. So I wonder if there's a push. Look, he's waiver eligible regardless. So a one-way, two-way contract is not going to affect whether or not he needs to clear waivers to go to the American League. But it might make the Flames a little less eager to think about him as the guy they send to the American League if they have to be paying his NHL salary while he's playing in the AHL. So I wonder a little bit about that. And I also just wonder if the camp is looking for some assurances and looking, even if it's not written to a contract, to say, hey, we want to know that he's not going to be the first guy that's pushed off the roster, or he's not going to be the first guy pushed out of the lineup. I wonder if those are the things that are holding up Oliver Kylington's deal. Because to your point, Stephen, it seems on the surface that a 1 year deal, maybe two, but probably 1 year deal at not a lot of money. Doesn't seem like there's a whole lot that the Kylington camp has for leverage. So it is a little strange. I'm with you that it hasn't been signed as of yet. Kyle thinks that we're going to be talking about a trade. I don't know. I don't believe that trading. And Steven agrees it might be a one-way, two-way thing. I don't know, Kyle, if trading Kylington is the way. I think they need a guy like him part of the fold for depth reasons, because Chris Tanev historically has battled with injuries, and Yusuf Alamaki has battled injuries the last 3 seasons, and Nikita Nestorov hasn't played an NHL game since 2017. So we're talking about almost 4 years between games in the NHL for Nestorov when he comes back. I think having a guy like Kylington who has NHL experience and who can take a regular shift in the NHL, even if he doesn't reach the ceiling that a lot of people hoped he was going to initially, I still think there's reason to keep him in the organization. I don't think trading him makes a ton of sense. I think having him as part of a rotation and as part of the group is really important going forward. So that's kind of where I stand on Kylington and whether or not he'll be traded. I do think they'll sign him. I think that they have to sign him. Somebody threw out a Noah Hanafin for Brendan Carlo idea as a trade. That's interesting. Carlo's played a lot of time with Zdeno Chara in recent years. I don't know if I like that. That seems like a pretty lateral move to me. I think Hanafin gets a bit of a rough ride, especially this past season. They're both the same age. One's a right shot, one's a left shot, so maybe it solves a problem in that regard. I don't think it's a horrible deal necessarily. It seems somewhat lateral to me, and I still think there's a lot of value on having a guy like Hanafin on this team because of the good contract he's on right now. And the problem is that Carlo's a pending RFA. I was just looking that up as we were talking right here. Carlo's a pending RFA, and what worries me there is that now you've got to negotiate another contract. And Hanafin's got cost certainty. He's signed for 4 or 5 more years at under $5 million. I like that idea. I like the cost certainty. So I don't love the idea of a straight across Hanafin for Carlo. And I still think there is something there when it comes to Hanafin. Do I think he's ever going to be a top pairing defenseman? No, but do I think that there might still be some steps for him to take in his career? Yeah, I do. Rob doesn't like the idea of that deal. He also likes the upside of Noah Hanafin. So we'll see. I don't love that deal, though, when it's thrown out there. That's my personal opinion. Here's a question that came in on Twitter today from James, who says, how good will Sam Bennett have to be to get a qualifying offer at the end of the season, keeping in mind that it'll be a $2.55 million qualifying offer and he'll be arbitration eligible if they make it. Here's the other part of it is that with that all being said, I mean, whether he is signed or not, there are expansion worries that you have to worry about when talking about Sam Bennett. There are expansion draft things that need to be taken into account, and whether or not you're going to be able to keep him and protect him as one of the seven forwards. So, assuming the Flames go seven forwards, three defensemen, and one goaltender, will they have enough room to keep Bennett as one of those seven forwards? Assuming that Gaudreau, Monahan, Lindholm, Mangiapane, Dubé, Backlund, and I'm missing and Kachuk. Pretty important to put him in there. So there's the seven that I would be thinking about protecting ahead of Sam Bennett. And if you want to protect those seven, well then where does Sam Bennett fit? And if that's the case, what does his long-term future look like? Do they make a side deal to keep him? Do they deal him in season to avoid having to go down that road? You know, I wonder. Bennett's got a really interesting season in front of him. With what he did in the playoffs, I think Bennett has really put himself in a good situation going into next season where they've got maybe the highest hopes for him that they've had going back to maybe his sophomore season after he had the pretty decent full rookie campaign. I think the expectations are going to be higher for Bennett now than they have been in years going into next season. So knowing that, if he's able to meet those expectations, or if he's able to not fall short and not have a disappointing regular season, then I think that maybe the team starts to think about how they ensure they keep Bennett in the fold going forward and how they ensure that he is, that they get him under contract. But if he has a disappointing regular season and we get to next year's trade deadline, whatever that is, and we're talking about Bennett having another Sam Bennett-like regular season, I wonder if they might start thinking about other things just because of the looming expansion draft and, to James' point, because of the qualifying offer and the arbitration rights. So there's let's read some of the comments before we wrap things up. What else we got here? Mike says important year for Bennett to shine. We'll see. And I'm completely with you. I think this is a crucial year for Sam Bennett's development. Zach says I'm joining late, but what's the latest on the Hanafin to Boston for Carlo deal? Has this been confirmed as a legit rumor? I've been on vacation, so I have not been as up on things. But that on this Flames Nation live today, when it was brought up, that's the first time I've heard it. So I don't know the legitimacy of the deal. I do know that I've checked in with the Flames different times over the last number of weeks, and I've heard from a number of different sources that they're not getting a lot of phone calls right now. There's not a lot going on when it comes to trade talk right now. That can obviously change on in the snap of a finger or the blink of an eye, but the latest that I had heard is that not a lot of phone calls, and there's just not a lot happening in that regard. That being said, to refresh, Zach, I don't love the idea of the Carlo for Hanafin deal myself. Cam, I like the idea of Bennett playing center. He seemed to be more comfortable there than on the wing. In the playoffs, yes. In the regular season, no. I don't think I've ever seen Sam Bennett look super comfortable in the regular season playing center. Now, maybe this postseason changes that. Maybe that is the big step that he needed, but I haven't seen a lot of that in the regular season. Corey writes, what are your thoughts on the Flames' first line? Depends what you look at the first. Like I've said it numerous times. I think they need to rethink what their first line is. Give me Elias Lindholm, Matthew Tkachuk, Andrew Mangiapane as this team's number one line, and that and change the way you look at the duo of Gaudreau and Monahan, I think that's an interesting way of going forward. Great stuff, everybody. A couple of reminders over at flamesnation.ca. Our latest top prospect is Yan Kuznetsov, the second-round pick of the Flames in the 2020 draft. He is the 12th ranked of the top 20 prospects. All the gang at Flames Nation is counting down the top 20 prospects. We're at number 12. Number 11 is going to drop tomorrow on Friday. Stay tuned for Flames Nation for any Flames news and for any news on the NHL. The big show on Sportsnet 960 The Fan goes every day from 1 until 6 p.m. I'm back on the show on Monday, but tune in. Will and the gang are doing it until then. And follow us on the socials. You see at the bottom right your Flames Nation socials, and if you're so inclined, follow along on Instagram or Twitter up above if you're interested in following me. Be well, stay safe, everybody. We'll talk to you probably on Monday with another edition of Flames Nation Live. Stay safe. We'll talk to you soon, and have yourself a wonderful weekend, hey?